Okay, everybody, why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm not going to use the gavel if I can possibly avoid it. So um, why don't we start with a sound check just to make sure everybody can hear everybody? So can we start with downtown? You okay down there? Can you hear everybody downtown?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. West? West?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. And Polly?
Hearing great.
Okay, I think we're good. Just as a usual rejoin or issue, if we lose the picture, we can continue. But if we lose the sound, we'll take a 10-minute recess if we need to restore it. But I don't think that's going to happen today. Okay? So I think the next order of business, Chuck, is probably to do a quorum check, and I believe that's our fancy question of the week. Come on. Okay, so thank you, Chuck. If you would indicate on your clickers where you are so we can get a count for each of the campuses, please. So I think we're well over the quorum. We can go ahead and close it. Very good. Now we're going to do the other. Right, Chuck? Question? And you can blame me as usual for this one. Not surprisingly, a lot of people would just say they don't want to answer. I'm afraid it is a supply chain question, yeah. Okay, why don't we call it there, Chuck? Well, I hate to disappoint people. Amazon does have lots and lots of stuff in the valley, about 6, and they're going to bring in another one. But the biggest operation is either Target at about 2.2 million square feet or Walmart at about 2.1 million square feet. Now, just so everybody can get a sense of that, it takes me about 10 minutes to walk from Apache over to University. It takes me about the same amount of time to walk from one end of those warehouses to another. So they're serious out there. It's all on the west side, though. Okay. We have a couple people who we're fortunate enough to have today. And I'd like to first introduce Nicole Taylor. Nicole is Deputy VP and Dean of Students. And she also is the person that the other deans of students, I guess that's the right term, work for and report to, as well as disability resources. Nicole joined us from Stanford in January. She has some interesting insights on where our students are and where they need to be. So please.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. I'm going to just give you a really brief overview of EOS, Educational Outreach and Student Services, just so you get an idea of the range of services that we provide. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of insight in what I call the new normal and what we're seeing with our students. And we are not alone in this. If you've been reading any higher ed journals or Time Magazine or New York Times articles, you can probably have a little insight, or just even students in your classes or your labs, you get a little insight into what we're facing with this generation of students. So our mission really is to provide comprehensive student services to support all current ASU students, as well as the broader student community, or what we like to call the pipeline of students into ASU. We have 3 core areas: student services, which I'll spend a little bit of time talking about, educational outreach and access. Those are all of our pipeline students in the K-12 districts in the Valley. And then we run charter schools, which some people either forget or didn't know that we actually have charter schools. We have a K-12 charter school at the Poly campuses, broken down onto 2 different sites there. We have downtown Phoenix. We have just started one in Tempe. We're out in Casa Grande and looking to expand. So those are the 3 core areas of work under EOS. And we really strive, and I really hope that you feel this when you engage with any of our services, to provide timely and responsive services. And our sole goal is to ensure that the students have the optimum environment for learning, that they have what they need in the rest of their life, that we break them up into categories and we break them up into boxes. They live one full life. So you deal with them in the academic life primarily, we deal with them in the rest of their lives. For them, it's just one life. So we try to make sure that whatever they need allows them to learn and to do the best they can when they're learning. So student services, we like to call this the safety net. So under the Deans of Students offices on all 4 campuses, we do student advocacy and care. And we do conduct, we do cultural engagement, we do international student engagement and support, we have our student government, we also have off-campus housing and community relations, all of the high-rises. It's easiest to see in Tempe, all of the high-rises around here. We have relationships with all of those property managers because they are about 75 to 80% students. So they're like off-campus dorms. So we actually have community liaisons who reside there and work in those apartment complexes. We also provide resources for families, and we run a child care center. So some people don't realize that. We have career and professional services, disability services, health and counseling services, housing. So we have 15,000 beds across all 4 campuses, fraternity and sorority life. We have over 1,000 student organizations that we oversee. We have student unions on all campuses, and here we now have the pavilion that's in operation. And we have Sun Devil Fitness Centers, which are state-of-the-art fitness centers on all 4 campuses. So I'm going to go back to this and talk a little bit about the new normal. I think if I point out a couple statistics, you'll get a sense of what the new normal is. Student advocacy, we've seen an increase of 30% from July 1 to now over this same time period last year. So these are students who are in crisis, who need assistance, who need to navigate our systems, who feel like they're falling behind, who are stressed, anxious, depressed, something. 30% increase in 1 year. In terms of another statistic, which is very telling, is our health and counseling services. In terms of our counseling services, we have had an increase of 17% new clients in the same time last year. We've had 26% increase in consults that our therapists do with faculty, staff, families, and students about other students in the same period as last year. We've had over 24,000 counseling visits in last academic year alone, which was 13% more than the academic year before that. And based on my first statistics, we're going to beat all of those numbers. What is this saying? This is the new normal. One, our students are doing what we tell them. Reach out, seek help, get advice, go get help, go ask for what you need. So they're actually doing what we're saying we're doing. They're just doing it in far higher numbers than we ever anticipated. We're also seeing the levels of anxiety, stress, depression are off the charts compared to what we've seen before. And again, we're not alone in this. If you read, there was a Time article over last week. New York Times periodically will write about this. Frank Bruno writes about this periodically. It's everywhere. Our colleagues in state schools, private schools, everyone is seeing this trend. We're also seeing the new normal as parents. And I'm one, my son is 18. We have overparented this generation. I like to call them the playdate generation. We have controlled their socialization since the time they were toddlers to now. I get personally as many emails from parents as I do from students. And when parents email me, their students aren't even copied on it. right? One parent who was like, this is our first year at ASU. And I'm like, wait, is the parent a student? No, right? Can you tell me who I can speak with in career services about my son getting an internship in my son's career path? I'd like to speak to that person. That's the new normal, okay? We used to fight it. We did. For the last few years, we fought it, and we said bad things about those parents, who happen to be all of us, by the way, or grandparents, right? And instead, we realized we have to engage with parents and families very differently and embrace this new normal, be empathetic to that family, to the parent who's really just coming from a place of care, and then, okay, please have your son, daughter, your child, your student contact this office or contact our office, and we'll navigate for them. That's hard. That's hard. In our career services, we have parents who show up when the students are taking interviews. We've had parents negotiate with that first boss, that contract. Usually doesn't end up very well for their student. We've seen offers, reneged because they actually wanted to hire the student, not the parent, right? So this is the new normal, though. So this means that we have to engage very differently. We have to think about our processes differently, which we are. We have to think about how we really work with students, how we do peer-to-peer interactions, how do we really help develop student leaders so they can help deliver messages. We work with faculty a lot in terms of how do they negotiate, because I'm sure you may be seeing it, and the peers in your departments are seeing that students aren't afraid to make certain demands anymore, or they're not afraid to want to renegotiate grades, or their parents aren't afraid to want to renegotiate a grade because they thought it was unfair. So these are the kinds of things that we're dealing with day in and day out. We've become very well practiced in them and are here to really help you, help your students, help your TAs, help you really help navigate this new normal, because it's not going away. The numbers are showing that they are showing up differently, and they are showing up in crisis more than they have before. So it's going to take really all of us working together and working in concert in order to make sure that our students really do finish, really do succeed, really do retain year after year and make it to graduation. That really is our sole purpose. That is really all I wanted to present. I only had 10 minutes. I'll open it to any questions. And if you need any of for those of you downtown, Sharon Smith is your dean. I think you all probably know her. West, it's Cassandra Aska, and Poly, it's Lance Harrop. So think of the Dean of Students office as the repository. We are the hub. So if you have a question about anything that's student related, we can usually find the answer or find the right person or the right office to help you.
Why don't we start with downtown? Are there any questions?
Are there any questions?
Questions downtown?
No questions from downtown. Thank you.
Wes? Questions? Anything from West?
No questions from West.
Polly? Anything from Polly?
Yeah. One question, do you have any data on the degree to which the increases are due to immigration status or DACA status?
So we have about 300 DACA students here. So do they peak in terms of their needs, particularly when tweets go out or court orders happen? Yes. But they are a small fraction of the 73,000. So, and we have a concerted effort to actually reach out to specific student populations that we know may be under duress versus others. In the past 2 months, we worked with the registrar's office to send out targeted email and outreach, both phone call, email, text, to students who were first affected. There was, I'm not going to get the order right because there have been too many. There were 2 hurricanes, there were fires, there was Las Vegas, there was DACA, there was travel ban, earthquakes in Mexico. That's a lot, right? So I know I'm missing, because literally for a while there was, every week we were sending out communication to targeted students. Because of our population and how large we are, when something happens in the world, when something happens in a part of the United States, chances are we have couple hundred students that are affected every time that happens. So we do a concerted effort to really reach out to them. So the DACA students were one of the groups that we reached out. And literally our staff will call, will email, will follow up, making sure they have what they need, make sure their family's okay. You know, those who lost, their families lost homes in the fires in California and the hurricanes in the South and in Puerto Rico feel guilt. They're here with a house, you know, we house them and we feed them, and their families are struggling. So we do that across the board. That's day in and day out for us.
I just want to add to that comment that we do this for every online student as well.
Yes, absolutely. Every student. Every student. So it's all 100,000 students. And we work in concert. Can I just make one parting request? Please. This is, you know, this is our day-to-day routine. It may not be your day-to-day routine, and we're not asking you to become the therapists, the counselors, or find the housing for those who are homeless. But if you see something, say something. Reach out to us, say something to a student, even just asking, how are you? You seem to be falling asleep in my class a lot. What's going on? Just that gesture can mean an awful lot to those students. But really, this is the new normal, so please, if you see something, say something to the student or reach out to the dean's office. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nicole. Now we have Steve Borden. Steve is the director, founding director, in fact, of the Tillman Center. He was also the founding director of the Naval Science Department here. And I'm going to let him, I'm hoping, or I've asked him to speak about the veteran situation here on campus and how much we've been able to help them, hopefully.
Thank you for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you today. I want to start off by debunking two major myths that are out there about our veterans, that are prevalent narratives about the veteran community that are in our society today. The first one is that our veterans are heroes. And because they're heroes, we need to do everything for them. We do have some veterans who are heroes. When you meet one of them and you talk to them about what they accomplished, they will probably tell you, I was just doing my job. The other narrative is one that our veterans are broken, and therefore we need to do all sorts of things for them. And I'm not going to tell you we don't have some veterans returning to society who are different than what they were when they went into the military. But the latest estimate that I have from the VA is that between 30 and 35% of our combat veterans are somewhere on the PTS spectrum. And we only have about 30% of our military members who have actually seen combat. When you start doing the math on that, you realize that our veterans as a community are not broken. Both of these narratives, which are common, breed entitlement. And so we've taken a very specific tack from the Pat Tillman Veterans Center over the last, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years to change this discussion. Our goal, our mission is to empower our veterans to succeed. We believe they can succeed. We know they can succeed. We watch them succeed on a regular basis. There will be an invitation going out for faculty members to be able to join us. Well, we hope we're going to have room in the new student pavilion for our stole ceremony. That is where we award a stole with a service emblem on it to each one of our graduating veterans. We already have close to 150 who have signed up for the stole ceremony for our December graduation, and probably about 500 family members who want to accompany them. I just found out when I was attending a dissertation for one of our veterans who was completing her doctoral work this week. I did some numbers on that for an article for ASU Now. We have over 140 doctoral students here at ASU who are veterans. That does not sound like a broken community to me. I honestly believe that if we provide, and we are working to always do better and better at it, but if we provide the right enrichment environment for our veterans here at ASU, we will have a hand in creating the next greatest generation, provide Tom Brokaw the material for his next book. I truly believe that. I see that happen on a regular basis. If I could ask for one thing as far as being able to leverage this moment, I would ask you to embrace us in that philosophy of expecting our veterans to succeed. How does that work? Maybe you have a research opportunity, and maybe in your area there are some folks in the military, if they come from a particular background, that might actually be able to bring, even at the undergraduate level, a different perspective into that research environment. You reach out to us and give us a position description of what you're looking for, the type of experience you would like to have from the military background. We will try and help find a veteran for you who will bring that to your research environment or to your lab. We are looking to create these kinds of opportunities because our veterans are taking advantage of them. This coming week, as we get into a salute to service, the School of Sustainability will have an exhibit where Professor Nate Johnson has actually been working on building and training people to operate microgrids. We have had about 40 veterans graduate from that program and actually get certified for how to unpack and operate these microgrids that can be deployed in following tsunamis, following a hurricane and so forth, and actually provide a little electrical power and command center and so forth to affect assistance and recovery operations. Now, while I believe that our veterans are here and we can expect them to succeed, I would be foolish to think that we don't have some who need some help. And you may come across one of them. The best thing you can do is, as early as possible, is connect that person with us at the Pat Tillman Veterans Center. We have 2 people on our staff who are ASU employees that are military advocates who help students navigate Dean of Students Office issues, anything that comes up from that side. But they work everything from veterans who are bordering on homelessness to veterans who are having marital problems, you name it, they get involved with that. But there's only 2 of them, and we have 6,000 military and veteran students that we're supporting right now, including our online community, and then another 1,000 spouses and dependent children of veterans. So it's over 7,400 right now that we have enrolled here at ASU. So the best point of entry for getting assistance for any veteran that you come across is me, because it's a relatively small staff. When our advocates are busy, I actually attend meetings and so forth with Dean of Students Office or with faculty members or whatever we need to in order to provide the right assistance. So I know that Professor Maltz has my contact information. Feel free to share that with everybody. Shoot me an email. Let me know what the problem is, and we'll figure out what the right level of resources is to connect that person with. We have a VA employee that works out of our center. We have the 2 military advocates. We have a veteran-specific liaison with ASU Counseling and Wellness. We have another person that specifically helps us with career professional development services, and we are all connected to the Arizona Coalition of Military Families with a wide variety of veteran resources that are here not only in the Valley but in the state of Arizona. So be it an out-of-state student, if you have an online student, we will figure out how to get the right resources connect with that student regardless of where they are.
We have a couple minutes if anybody has any questions. Let me start at Polly. Anything there?
No questions.
Okay. West?
No questions.
Okay. Downtown?
No questions.
We do have one here.
Hi. Reed Cartwright, School of Life Sciences. I've had students in the past who are veterans but not of the U.S. forces. Do you support those students as well?
We have not directly reached out to those students, but the answer to that is yes. Just about all of us that have served in the military have served alongside in some sort of coalition effort or something like that. So by all means, if we have a veteran from another country who is here, we'd be more than happy to see how we might be able to assist that individual, by all means. We actually have about 14 U.S. veterans who did not go through the process that was available to them while they were in the service, and they're actually still citizens of their country of origin. So it's a spectrum of veterans and nationality. Yes?
I'm Bob Wood from the Cary School of Business. I'm not sure if you're the right office or not, but I've had a couple of situations where when guys or gals are deployed, the disenrolling process is very involved. I think if ASU could have some sort of one-shot, you know, hey, Uncle Sam just called, can you undo my paperwork for me? I think that would be a real help.
We actually are a fantastic point of entry for that, but the actual paperwork for military activation and withdrawals and so forth runs through the individual schools and colleges. But we will make sure that what it is that they are called up for is a valid requirement. So we do some of the military vetting as far as that's concerned, but then we'll work with the different schools and colleges to get that paperwork run. It's also important to connect them with us because depending on the date of withdrawal, it can affect their VA benefits and have a significant financial impact to them depending, and we can help them walk through those different options.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Okay, I'm going to move on to the UAC Chair's report. A few things involved this month. I'd like to start by congratulating Becky Ladd, who is our Spotlight Senator of the Month, and well-deserving, I might add. She does about twice as much as I do on half the time. Becky last year ran the University Services and Facility Committee, and this year she's nice enough to, I'm not sure she volunteered, but I think she did, to run the Personnel Committee. So let's thank Becky, please. There are a few specific issues that came up, and I thought I would go over them. The first one, and I'm not sure everybody's going to hear this, is directory photos. So in an effort to professionalize the directory, the provost has nicely enough funded professional photography for all faculty who want a picture in the directory. If you have serious concerns, you may opt out of this, but I really do recommend. I've had a couple done. I recommend it very much to make sure that our directory is as professional as we possibly can have it. Recording faculty lectures. You may specify in your syllabus that recording of lectures and especially of other students is not allowed. Vice Provost Clark, who's sitting over here fortunately, has provided suggested language, but recognize that language, which can come out of my office, will have to be customized for individual class formats and lectures. So if you have a concern about that and you want some language, I can give you the general stuff, but you will have to customize it. Finally, open access. Last week was Open Access Week. And yeah, we sort of missed it here, but anyway. So to publicize our new policies in this area, we will be distributing a video that the Open Access Task Force actually put together. You can expect that very soon. Chuck, I assume it'll be next week, this week maybe, tomorrow. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry, Brendan.
Brendan O'Hulucan from Geographical Sciences. You mentioned the issue of recording in class.
Yes.
What about the reverse? If you've got a student who you feel is being obstructive in your class, am I entitled to whip out my phone and record him or her?
I believe you are. The provost is saying yes. This is a one permission state for recording. In other words, they don't have to give their permission.
But if it's in an open classroom?
Yes. There's another question, okay? Oh, sure, Mark.
Brendan, one comment. As long as you don't post that.
Right.
Hagrid, wow. LaDawn Haglund from the School of Social Transformation. I'm confused because if it's a one-person agreement state, why can't they record your lecture?
Okay, I'll let Mark take that.
Because there's also copyright protections for you in terms of the intellectual product that you're conveying to the students. I wouldn't get into that with them. I would simply say because there's language in our policy environment that allows you to prohibit this. because part of it's also around commercial note-taking. So some students are looking to resell the product, and so we can prohibit all that, and that's all legitimate under our policies and under our laws. The point that Brendan's really making is that if you have someone who's acting in a way that you feel is inappropriate and you want documentation, that's not an inappropriate thing to do. In the same way, I will tell you that because it is a one-way situation, and you won't know sometimes if someone's recording you because there's too many ways to do it today. And we get this not infrequently, but not frequently either, where faculty go off on some riff that has nothing to do with the content of the class that only digs a hole for you. Academic freedom does have some boundaries to it in terms of the content of what you're talking about. And so just keep that in mind too, because you can't possibly control everything what everybody's recording, even if you'd like to say that and wish it. Be mindful of it. Oh yes, I'm being coached. If students have an exemption from the Disability Resource Center, which you would know because they should come and tell you that, then they're allowed to record the class under the rules of that exemption. But they should be coming to you specifically with that documentation. That isn't something you should have to ask them for, okay?
Okay, are there questions at the other campuses? Let me start with West. Do you have any questions on what I've already talked about?
No, we do not.
Okay. Polly?
In terms of students who are not taking notes in your class, but instead of taking notes, they just go up and take a phone shot of the board, is that acceptable? Or do we have to say no to that? Because that's fairly common.
Thank goodness the provost is here.
The short answer is I'm not really sure, but I'm going to make up a rule. To me, it's all part of the IP of what you're conveying in the class, and so you control that, and therefore you should have the option of prohibiting people from taking a picture of what's on the board. But to me, that's ultimately your discretion as whether you allow it or not.
Okay. And finally, I think downtown.
No questions here.
Okay. There's another question here. Just a minute.
Hi, I'm Aviral from SIDSI. Maybe this is an obvious question. So if some student asks that they just want to sit and listen in the class, we should say no, right?
Great. And it is, seriously, because it's good to clarify these things. A visitor in the class is up to you to determine whether or not they're allowed in the class. Nobody has the right to sit in your classroom except the student who's enrolled in your class. So you have all the authority you'd like to say, no, you can't sit in the class. Well, I don't care what they think they want. You have the right to say you're not allowed in the class. You can, sure, they're not getting credit for it, and if they want to sit in it. And we sometimes have visitors who come to the university, and we contact a faculty member and say, someone would like to sit in the class, would you mind allowing that? We always ask for permission. If the faculty member says it's fine, or they might tell us, well, I'm giving a test that day, in which case there's no point in them going. But it's your call, but there is no reason to give permission because they're not entitled to be there.
Another question.
A very quick clarification. I'm sure you went through this. Not at our discretion. What recording? So what can't we grant permission for in terms of recording?
To my knowledge. And again,
excuse me, can we repeat that question because the microphone kept cutting in and out on us?
I think the question was, what is not at our discretion? In other words, what can we not prohibit in terms of recording? I understand the question.
Yes, that's my question.
Okay. Okay, so Vice Provost Clark is saying that the only thing you cannot do is prohibit someone who has a disability determination from recording your class.
Thank you.
Ah. Well, this turns out to be really interesting. Okay.
So assuming I put in my syllabus that I prohibit the students from recording me, and then I catch a student recording, what are the consequences for the student? Are there any?
I was going to say we're going to switch speakers here.
Largely at your discretion, but the advice that I've been given by the Office of General Counsel is that if you think that you are going to take a very hard line about this and include the possibility of dismissing somebody from class, you should indicate that on the syllabus, that recording is prohibited, a violation of this rule could lead to such and such a penalty. Just, if you're going to go that far, they should know about that in advance. Some lesser options that you may or may not choose to employ would be reporting the student to SRR, student rights and responsibilities. Again, a lot of it is at your discretion, but if you anticipate taking a particularly hard line, it's a good idea to indicate that along with the language regarding recording itself.
All right, thank you. Okay, let me go on to some other things. All of our committees have now had their first meeting. It looks like it's going to be very productive. I'm hoping for that, of course. The Online Education Task Force has also held its first meeting, and there are a number of issues that are already on the table. Jim Moore, who's here, is heading up the task force. Thank you, Jim. And I should suggest you either direct concerns to me or to him in terms of online education issues. University Academic Integrity Group is meeting actively. I'm sitting on that one. And I would suggest again that if you have issues with that, you can certainly send them to me, things you want me to bring up, or you can send them to Stephanie Lindquist, who is our Deputy Provost. And I think I ran into Stephanie at the game, and apparently she's out of the country for the next 2 weeks, but still, I'm sure she'll answer her emails. Okay, annual breakfast with the Regents will be in early February. We'll be recruiting faculty for that. Usually we ask for about 7 or 8 outside faculty to help us talk to the Regents. We'll be setting up an agenda, et cetera, on that kind of thing. And finally, we're going to change things up a little bit in terms of the agenda this month. We're going to highlight a committee each month because we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to understand and hear what's going on in committees. Frankly, that's where most of the work gets done. So with that, I'm going to ask Dan McCarville from the Fulton School of Engineering to come up. He heads the Student Faculty Policy Committee.
Well, good afternoon. My name's Dan McCarville, and I'd certainly like to thank my fellow Student Faculty Policy Committee members for letting me represent them today at this meeting. It's funny, is Keith Hollinger, I see, is over there at Poly right now, kind of waving at us. He left us with a pretty clean slate. He headed the policy committee last year and left us with a pretty clean slate to start the year, but it filled up really fast. We have about a dozen items already that were, requests and so forth that we're working on. A little bit of old business, but mostly new stuff. So I thought I'd go over a couple of these things. One of them is really kind of old, and I wanted to thank the provost office actually for this because we've been talking about this for a few years, but it takes a while to implement some of these things. And we've implemented an ASU-wide PeopleSoft database to track academic integrity violations and so forth. And the goal here is to be preventative and to discourage and so forth. And it's really sincerely appreciated by all of us. That was a policy that was voted on unanimously by the Senate a while ago, and now it's all rolling. Another one where I've been talking a bit now with, started with Fred Corey, but it's kind of, Art Blakemore and I are now having some discussions about this. The request has been made to proctor online math placement tests for our incoming freshmen. It'd be to their advantage to go through the math placement tests properly and so forth. And the tool that's being investigated or planned on right now is to respond to lockdown, and we're kind of talking about that to see if it'll be completely adequate, and I'm certainly hopeful that it will be. But if that's the case, then we can start proctoring the math placement tests coming in and getting students, incoming freshmen, placed in the proper math class, right, and so forth. We've got another request to looking at maybe changing the summer school session from 5-day work week summer schools to 4 days, have a 3-day weekend, so to speak, for the students and for us. And so that's kind of the intent is to maybe try to encourage more faculty to teach summer school classes and maybe open it up a little bit more for students who have part-time jobs. We'll see how that goes. I have an action item to contact other Pac-12 universities to see what they're up to. Mesa Community College does a 4-day already, but we got to see what some of the other universities are doing. We've got a policy. Let's trying to figure out a way to police the class discussion boards for illegal materials and links that are getting posted on class discussion boards. This provost office had suggested we add a syllabus requirement and some sort of a suggestion to the ACD. Stefania, one of our members, had actually drafted a proposal letter, and it's now being reviewed by Deb Clark over there and so forth. So we'll see how that hopefully that will kind of be we'll be done with that one shortly. We're looking also at social media use best practices document for faculty and so forth, and we're kind of reviewing that as well with the provost office. A really big one that's come to light though, and maybe some of you guys are not aware of this, so this is kind of one that I was kind of leading up to, I suppose. There's a synchronizing grade and grade appeal issue and subsequent enrollments. It's kind of an issue between the A and B sessions in the semesters, and in particular in summer school where they just butt up right against each other and one ends and the other goes. And actually, when talking with the advising offices and so forth over in engineering school, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, people, you know, if the B session is a class that they have for which the A session is a prereq, the B session has the A session as a prereq. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. And they're not passing the A session or whatever, and there's a grade appeal and all of this involved. Well, they can be halfway through the B session before things are settled, and then they've decided that they're not qualified to be in that class, and the costs and so forth, especially for online students, it's a pretty steep price tag. So we're trying to understand that a little bit better and gather some data to see if there's something we can do about that to make it a little easier for the students. But also the advising office is going nuts with it now. We talked about recording faculty members. There's another one that's a request that's kind of come to light real quickly, and that maybe and be interested in your opinions on this. Limit the number of student withdrawals from a course to maybe 2 or 3 or some sort of limit, and give faculty would write an override to let somebody in for the 3rd or 4th time or whatever that limit ends up being. The intent is, and again, the advising office is kind of pushing this one a little bit too, at least my engineering advising offices, and trying to encourage the students to not just kind of keep dropping out of a class until they think they got the first exam down good, and then move on to the next exam and so forth. I did a little data on one of the engineering schools. I got a bunch of data. The most I've seen is 11 in one class. So 11 withdrawals from the same class. This is in biomedical engineering. I'm sure it's just as bad in industrial and the others that I've still got to go through. And then the last one that I wanted to bring up is again, Stefania had asked about this. And what we're trying to investigate, what's our policy for having student IDs posted on the enrollment site, right? It's hard for ASU, maybe we're not allowed to ship a legal ID internationally to an online student, but we'd still like the photos on the enrollment site to allow us to validate and verify that the students taking the exam are really the students taking the exam. And so we're trying to figure out a little bit more about what the policy is and if there's something that needs to be done about that. And that's kind of our plate. It's pretty full. Any yays or nays or?
Let's check. We aren't going to spend a lot of time, but we can take one question from each campus. Downtown? Anything? Ring any bells?
No questions here.
Okay. Polly?
No questions here.
Okay. Wes?
No questions from West.
Okay, and Dan seems to have dodged the bullet because there's nobody at the mic here. But let me urge you, absolutely, to go, if you heard anything that might have been of interest that you have an opinion on, please forward it to him. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Okay, now we will go to new business. And new business in particular is Caroline Harrison talking to us about program proposals.
The following list of proposals will be taken up by the CAPC committee this Thursday on November 2nd, and then those that pass the committee will be brought to a vote on the next Senate meeting on November 27th. As always, if you have any concerns, comments, anything on any of these proposals, we would appreciate if you could get them to me by this Thursday, but certainly no later than the next Senate meeting. So the following proposals are being presented for the first read. A request from the College of Nursing and Health Innovation for the disestablishment of a graduate certificate, Child and Adolescent Mental Health Intervention Specialist. Request from the School of Sustainability for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Environmental and Sustainability Economics. A request from W.P. Carey School of Business, Morrison School of Agribusiness for the establishment of an undergraduate certificate in risk management.
Okay, well, let me emphasize that's a first read, as you could probably tell. And anything you have are of interest to you of those programs, please get that to Caroline. Okay, now we move on to old business. And then the first old business piece is the new course proposal agenda. We take this up as a consent agenda. And the question is then, does anyone have any courses that they want pulled off of the consent agenda? Let me start with West. Yes, I see Stefan's got his hand up.
Yes, we would like to pull and postpone the vote on FMP 350 documentaries, as the two parties are still discussing the course. It's too close to an existing offering, and the two sides are now negotiating, but they need a little more time.
Okay. Does anybody have any comment on Stefan's effort to postpone this? Downtown?
No comments here, thank you.
Polly?
No comments.
Okay. Is there anybody here? Yes, I see someone coming into the microphone here.
I'm Karen Quote from School Transformation.
You need to get a little closer if you can. No, it's not working very well. No, it looks like the... Okay, Denise, could you...
Okay. All right.
No, I think maybe not.
I'd like to pull the CEL consent agenda. This, I think it's called the Center of Economic Thought.
ETL?
CE.
Okay, are there comments on that?
What is she calling? CEL, I just lost the number. Okay.
Okay.
One of them.
Can we repeat some of that? That mic in the middle is still cutting out.
Maybe, okay, I'm not sure. We're talking about which course are we talking about again, Chuck?
I only got CEL. I need the number, though.
Okay, just a minute.
Well, she's coming up. Stefan, can you repeat your course number also?
Ours is FMP 350.
Okay, FMP 350. And,
Documentaries, yes.
okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so 100, 200, 235, 305, 20, 345, 345, 375, 475, 485.
So you would like everything with a CEL prefix pulled off of the consent agenda. Okay. Comments from Nat? I don't see any at Tempe. Anybody downtown?
No comments here.
Holly?
No comments here.
West?
No comments from West.
Let me give Tempe one more chance. Okay, well, those are going to be coming off of the consent agenda and will therefore be in abeyance. And hopefully the people who are particularly involved in proposing those courses will get together with the folks who are concerned about it. That's the way this works. Okay. Just to remind everybody, at the course level, this does not typically get to the Curriculum and Planning Committee. Courses are to be settled among the units themselves. We can get involved if necessary, but typically that's the way it's done. Any comments from the Provost? Anything you guys talk about? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
So we need to vote on the consent agenda now.
Now we need to vote on the courses that remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay, sorry, this is Chuck. I'm going to read this to you because the font's small on a custom question here, but it says, do you approve Senate Motion 2018-14 new course proposal consent agenda minus all CEL courses and FMP 350?
Okay, why don't we close it? Okay, the consent agenda is adopted as modified per Chuck's remarks. Okay, now we have the old business of the, and Caroline will be back.
The following proposals were approved at the CAPC meeting last month. A couple of clarifications. First of all, the new BIPH in International Public Health. The proposal that you have here is what was voted on by CAPC. However, there was a change since the first reading at the last Senate meeting, where one of the courses, CHS 302, was pulled from the course consent agenda. In this proposal that has been approved, it was replaced by an ASU course, HCD 300 Biostatistics. Other than that, it is the same proposal that we read previously. Also, I'll just remind you that is the Plus Alliance proposal. Degree, the person that we're offering as part of that, and a fully online degree. So with that, I will go ahead and present these proposals. First is a request from the College of Health Solutions, School for the Science of Healthcare Delivery for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, BIPH in International Public Health. Then the request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, School of Social Transformation for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Sexuality Studies. Request from the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, Dean's Office for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Health Law Policy. Request from the Sandra Day O'Connor College of Law, Dean's Office for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Law and Sustainability. And a request from the College of Public Service and Community Solutions, School of Community Resources and Development for the disestablishment of a graduate degree, MAS Sustainable Tourism.
Okay, Chuck, would you go ahead and put up the question? Okay. Are there any concerns? I'm sorry, I should get this right eventually. Are there any concerns or anybody wants to pull any of those programs off the consent agenda? Downtown?
We're good, thank you.
Polly?
Everything's fine.
Okay. West?
We are okay.
Okay. I see the provost would like to come to the mic.
I just want to compliment everybody. I thought the last time when we pulled a course off the International Public Health degree, that it was great because it actually caused everybody to reflect on what the content should be, and we ended up with a stronger and better degree as a result. So kudos to the Senate for doing that.
Thank you very much. And in particular, I believe Eric Kostelik was one of the instigators on that. So, okay, can we go ahead and put up the consent agenda for the program? Okay, let's go ahead and close it, Chuck. So the consent agenda relative to programs and the old business is now approved. Thank you all. Okay, last before open forum are the committee reports. Chris, would you like to give us a little report?
Good afternoon. The Committee on Committees will be meeting soon. Our focus is on preparing for the Academic Assembly elections. Every spring, the Academic Assembly elects new members for the Committee on Academic Freedom and Tenure, Governance Grievance, and the Academic Professional Grievance Committees, and campuses will be electing a new president-elect. In mid-November, the Academic Assembly will be receiving a survey asking for nominations for these important offices. Senators, if you would, encourage your colleagues to participate in this most important nominations process. The committee will receive these nominations and then consider candidates for the spring ballot.
Thank you, Chris. Next, personnel.
Yes. Chuck, were we going to put it up there? I'm going to keep it brief since we're going to be doing some highlights, but I did want to let you know what the Personnel Committee is up to and introduce myself to Deb Clark. I'll be seeing you November 20th to discuss some of these things that have come to our Personnel Committee. So we have already formed the committee to look at non-tenure eligible pay and career progression issues. This was something that they looked at last year. In fact, I think it's been ongoing for a couple years. And then a few other RFCs, requests for consults. The faculty have raising concerns about the academic calendar and class starts. Apparently we're starting too early for some of the programs to try to finish up some of the summer things and get ready for the fall. So we're looking into what some of those issues might be. Still reviewing of the merit pay systems just across ASU and the various levels. I believe this one might be closed, but there was still an ongoing concern about the length of and the process involved in getting our unit bylaws passed. And some new questions have come to us about the amount of parental leave. So like right now when both parents are ASU employees, they split the 6 weeks of maternal care, so it's kind of been raised. Is it possible to get that to be each person has the six weeks? And then considering the best practices recommendations, some faculty have raised the concerns that they're teaching a lot more courses than they used to in areas that they don't know. So I will be reporting back. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Again, if you have any concerns, any of those resonate, please get to Becky about that. Next would be research and creative activities, which is Greg Stone.
Hello. We have 2 projects this year.
The first is we're going to continue our study of high-performance computing. And we feel that with the advent of big data and data analytics and such things, there's a real need to do some kind of a survey on demand or needs for this. In the past few years, areas where the idea of high-performance computing was utterly irrelevant. I mean, there are people now doing work in humanities that use high-performance computing. And so in order to really make sure we have the appropriate resources, we really do need to find out what kind of needs and demands there are. So we're planning to put together some sort of survey on that. And then in light of that, we are hoping to make recommendations about how to improve outreach, education, and training for the resources that we do have. So we'll be focusing on that this year. And our second project continues our interest as a university in improving our open access capabilities. And in this case, one of the things now, as I'm sure many of you know, is that there's a new model for publishing due to open access. It involves paying to publish. And a number of universities, including the University of Arizona, have programs to assist faculty with this under certain circumstances. And we'll be looking into the possibility, in conjunction with, we'll be working with the library on this, some kind of a program to help defray costs of pay-to-publish possibilities. If people have any interest or concerns with either of these, we're particularly interested in hearing about any kind of high-performance computing needs you think we might not even imagine to think of to consider. So let us know if you have any observations or interests in any of those points.
Thanks, Greg. And now Thurman Lockhart will be talking about facilities and services.
Hello. University and Facilities Committee has met and talked about various issues related to safety and accommodation. And of course, Becky Ladd has done a great job last year, took off a lot of those safety concerns. But there are two issues that we want to talk about, and that is kind of related to working in a dark area or dark hours. We believe that there are many dark spots within the university, and that we need some help identifying those places. And what we like to do is go out there with a light meter and then actually do a light map of our campus indicating where places need some attention or meet the standard. Another issue, so if you have some information related to that, please send me an email or Chuck, and then we'll incorporate that into the map. Another big issue is lack of lactation room, and we would like to know where those lactation rooms are currently available, and we would like to map those out, and if it is not enough, then we need to talk about incorporating some more. We're also going to be working with some parking issues as well as emergency evacuation issues further down the road. So we'll report on that. So we'll need some help with that first two items, identifying those problem areas. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Thurman. Much appreciated, and I think we all can live with some of that stuff. Okay, it's time for open forum. Anybody who has anything? And again, let me start with the other campuses. Can we start with West? Anything at West for open forum?
No, we do not have anything for open forum.
Okay, thank you. Polly, anything for open forum?
Just a question about the consent agendas. When the Senate says no, in one case today there was a reason provided, and in the second case there was no reason provided. So in the future, could we set a policy where there's at least a reason provided for pulling something? And so that's the first part of the question. The second is, where do those courses go? Does it go back to CAPC or does it go back to the college?
It goes back to the college. That's
Who's
what
the
I can tell you.
proposer?
It would go back to the college. That's the first thing. I agree with you, and that's my oversight that I didn't ask for a particular reason, and we now have someone, the person who asked for that, coming to the mic.
Hi, sorry, hear me now? All right. So we decided to pull it because there was kind of a vigorous discussion at the class level Senate, and even though it was resolved essentially at the class Senate, we wanted to open this up to the University Senate. And some of the issues that were brought up was that there is some repetition of the courses that are being offered through CEL that have been offered, for example, in political science, maybe even the School of Social Transformation. So we wanted to open this up to the entire Senate to be able to discuss this if there is indeed a discussion.
Yeah,
Thank
again, I think that typically at a course level, that remains at the unit level. So it sounds like class had some interest in making that all work itself out. And I'm sure that they'll be back as soon as they settle it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I had one other question. The gentleman who just spoke about dark places on campus, could you give us that email?
Sure. His name is Thurman Lockhart. And I believe it's standard.asu.edu. So if you take a look at your agenda, you'll see his spelling is there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else at Poly? Okay. So I think we're left with downtown. Anything from downtown?
Thank you. No questions.
Okay. And I see nobody else at Tempe. Okay. Oops, we have another.
I'm just a little confused. Could you clarify what you just said? Let's say at the unit level, let's say the college decided on one issue. Do we not bring it up at the Senate issue for the?
Okay, let me clarify, and also let me make sure that my parliamentarian and everybody else has got this straight. So keep me straight, all right? The way this works is that those courses actually are not considered at CAPC. So once you have decided that you're satisfied with the courses and the setup and all of that stuff, those courses come directly to the Senate for approval at the Senate level. That's where we are.
So once we approve it at the class level, then it just
Comes
gets
right
approved.
to here,
Okay.
and we do it.
So then why are we approving it again at the Senate level? I guess that's
Because
what I'm wondering.
there are other units that may have some desire and may have some actual input.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Understood. I know this can get a little confusing. It certainly was for me for many years. Okay. So we'll look forward to having those back on the consent agenda next month. Sounds like there's going to be almost a rubber stamp situation. Okay. Once again, hearing nothing else, I think we're done for the month. Thank you all. Appreciate it.